Okay, day in the life of a calligrapher. We start with the ink. The ink I use is Sumi ink. I've been working with it for years. It's very simple, very well behaved. It is a bit thick when it comes out of the bottle, so I thin it with some water. The paper I'm showing you here is my guidelines. I use these to keep my lines straight and make sure that they're all evenly spaced. I'm going to paste it up to some plexiglass, which is what I use as my writing surface. I'm going to paste it using Post-its for reasons which you will see later. Over the guideline, I'm going to paste the paper that I'm going to actually write the page of the Gospel on. Whenever I start, I write the date and time that I start on the upper left-hand corner of the page. This allows me to see how much time it takes to write each page and sort of budget my time effectively depending on how much I have left. When I put the lamp behind the plexiglass, like you see here, and then turn the brightness up, then the lines from the guideline, which is behind the actual page that I'll be writing on, are visible through the page, and I can see the guidelines without actually writing them physically on the final page, which is what the Middle Age scribes did. On the music stand to my right, you can see the text that I'm copying from. It's the Gospel of Mark. You can see here that it is chapter 16, the last chapter, and I'm here copying what is called the long ending of the Gospel of Mark, which is the standard ending in most editions, but not all of them, and especially not the modern ones, which I'll talk about later. The little piece of wire there is a bit of wire from a bag of bread. It's a twist tie. I bent it into that S shape, and I put it in my quill to use it as a reservoir. It holds a bigger droplet of ink so that I can go a little longer without dipping, and also manages the flow of ink so that it makes sure that it goes out just a little bit at a time and doesn't all blob onto the page at once. So here I'm showing you my indent ruler. Because I'm starting a new section, I need to put an indent at the beginning of the paragraph, and I use this to keep all of my indents a standard size throughout the project. Like I did not do in the 2014 edition, the indents were all over the place. But here they shall be consistent. Now it looks like the pen didn't start, so I had to re-dip. Most of the time when you see me writing, I will have sped up the film. In this section, for the first line of this page, I'm going to put it all in real time so that you can appreciate how long it took me and what I was looking at the whole time I was doing it. I'm proud to say that I discovered a new, to me, technique of calligraphy. There are usually three types of motion in calligraphy. There's finger movement, where you manipulate the pen with your fingers, wrist movement with your wrist, and arm movement with your arm. You want to use as much arm movement as you can and as little finger movement as you can. You get much better lines using the bigger muscles, and you don't get tired or sore as quickly. During this project, I also discovered that you can do it using breath movement. You can, when you breathe in and out, your torso moves up and down, and you can use that up and down movement to do the big up and down movements, such as the F or the H, the stem of the H, as you see there. This wasn't something that I invented. It is a known thing, but I'm happy that I was able to do it consistently and effectively during this project, which I was not able to do before. So the Gospel is 10,000 words. You see that we have copied 4 words right now, so that's only 9,996 to go. Assuming, of course, that we actually get through this page and I don't have to junk it and start over, which I sometimes had to do. Almost done with the first line. I discovered a new appreciation for the Gospel, copying it up by hand like this. I also discovered a new unappreciation for some other books. I would look at a book and say, that's nice, I wouldn't copy it by hand. My post-apocalyptic library that I had to copy by hand would be much, much smaller than my current one. It also put in me a new appreciation of the whole enterprise of history, that every ancient text that we had to be copied like this by a person or a whole bunch of people, very slowly, one letter at a time, over and over, because manuscripts degrade, so you have to recopy them. And if it's something like the Bible that you want not just in one city but in many cities, then you have to do it over and over in many places, by many cultures, by many people. So we're 4 lines in. Since I've done an appreciable amount of the gospel here, what I'm going to do is, to prevent errors, I'm going to underline that section on the text that I have to my right. The reason that I'm doing this is to prevent myself recopying any of the text that I've already copied, or conversely skipping to a line that I have not yet copied. So the underlining that I'm going to do is basically going to serve the same purpose as the cursor on a word processor. When a scribe recopies a line that they've already copied, that is called reditofication. It has its own term because it happens a lot, both to me and to a great many medieval scribes. That and also skipping lines. It's one of the things that scholars have to sort of correct. Modern scholars have to correct when they make critical additions and bring out nice, clean copies of the text to you, the reader. It's also one of the reasons why it's helpful to have many manuscript copies of a text, so that you can figure out where the scribe skipped or recopied a line. Now I'm about halfway down the page. I think I'm about 9 lines down, so I'm going to move the page up. The reason that I'm going to do this is that when I get down the page like that, I have to crane my neck, which is uncomfortable, and also my hand is in a less comfortable position. This is the reason that I use Post-its, so that I can easily just unstick the page and move it up and continue on without losing my flow. It's also handy when I am filming the entire process of the copying of the Gospel of Mark, as I am doing here, because it's easier to move the page than to move the camera. You can see that I'm sliding the page back and forth using the plexiglass. That's also handy for both reasons, both for comfort and also for filming. Here I have reached the end of the page, and you can see that I have folded the corner up, that's so that it sticks to the post-it more effectively and doesn't slide down. Earlier in the project, a lot of pages I had slide down, and the lines would be slightly uneven in the middle where the page was sneakily sliding around, so I started folding up the corners to prevent that. So yeah, that's a page. I'm now going to, and then you can see there the whole page after I've scanned it in. And in the upper left-hand corner, you can see that I have noted the time that I end. I don't know if you can read that, but it took me 44 minutes to copy this whole page. It got faster towards the end of the project. It was usually more around 45 minutes, but it could take up to an hour and a half, depending on many things. If I just wasn't feeling it that day, or if I had to stop in the middle and check the translation, because sometimes I didn't like Moffat's translation. After copying each page, and often before, I would do my stretches. These are both to stretch my hand out, to prevent carpal tunnel and tendinitis, and to stretch my back out, because my back informed me that, Tim, you are a 37-year-old man. You are no longer as young as you were in 2014, and you can't hold the same position as long comfortably. It will hurt. So to prevent it hurting, I did stretches like this. In the bottom right-hand corner, you can see every page slowly going by, or rather every final page, all 159 of them in the Gospel of Mark in this edition. So remember that every single page was done using that whole process that I just showed you. The page that I am copying in the foreground there, starting with the word nothing, that is what I consider to be the last page of the Gospel. It's not the last page of the project. I copied more pages after this, and in fact I am still copying, even as I record this. But it felt like the last page. This is the ending of the Gospel in the most ancient manuscripts. In the most ancient manuscripts that we have, it ends with the words. It ends with the women going up to the tomb. They find the tomb empty. And someone tells them that Jesus is not in the tomb. He has been raised, and they ran away, and they said nothing to anyone, for they were afraid. Now, the last word in Greek of this passage is gar. Gar is usually the start of a phrase. It's the equivalent of the word for in for example. Why did this gospel end with gar? Well, it could be bad grammar. Mark was not the most polished of prose writers. It could be that part of the gospel was physically lost, that there was a bit after gar that maybe fell off or rotted away. Or it could be deliberate. It could be sort of a cliffhanger ending. Most translations actually assume that it was bad grammar and that it was intended to end with gar. Moffat does not. He deliberately ends it mid-sentence, and that is something I really appreciate. I am of the opinion that the original author entered it there because she or they wanted the reader to seek for Jesus outside the text and didn't deliver Jesus to them in the text, as it were. So, yes, the end. Here I'm copying what is called the colophon. The colophon is a little extra line by the scribe put at the end of a manuscript. It's from the Greek word meaning the summit or the top of a mountain. The idea is that you've reached the top of this mountain of words and you get to scratch your name and maybe a little message of graffiti on a rock on the top of this mountain. There are some very funny colophons, things like my hand hurts or I'm hungover, rude phrases about the abbot. But most colophons are not quite that amusing. They're much more pedestrian and everyday. I chose for my colophon to use a Latin phrase that is used by many scribes in many manuscripts through many ages, from the 800s down through to the 16th century when manuscripts fell out of style. It's Timotheus hoc scripsit ora pro me. Timothy wrote this, pray for me.